Join me in welcoming Hernan Taglиani. I know I said your name wrong again, Hernan. Sorry. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me, Steve.
Tell us how to pronounce your last name.
Tagliani, Italian descent.
All right, there we go. The book is called Multicultural Mainstream. But first off, tell us a little bit about you and how you show up in the world.
Well, I was born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Moved to the United States 23 years ago. My background has always been marketing and advertising. That's my degree as well. I have been working with international advertising agencies my whole career until 18 years ago. I decided to open my own advertising agency and specialize in multicultural marketing. Besides running this successful company, I am a business speaker and author. I love going to conferences and speak about diversity, equity, and inclusion, educate executives about the importance of being inclusive and being culturally relevant with their message, as mainstream is becoming multicultural.
For people who maybe don't know or have been living under a rock or something, explain to us what a multicultural marketplace looks like and is.
Yeah, so at the present time, US is going through a cultural and demographic shift. And what I mean with that is that more than 44% of consumers are multicultural. And by 2028, sorry, that number would jump to 48%. So when you take a look of millennials and Gen Zs, again, more than half of them are multicultural. And so we're becoming a multicultural mainstream. We're becoming a multicultural nation driven by young generations that they're going to be basically driving this growth, and very important for brands and business owners to cater to these audiences. Within the multicultural market, Hispanics is the driving force. Hispanic consumers is the fastest growing demographic in the United States. And at the end of the day, if you really want to grow your brand, you grow your business, cater to multicultural consumers in a more culturally and relevant way, understanding their passion points, understanding their wants, needs, and desire. That's what is going to make or break a brand and a business.
Absolutely, that makes total sense. So, what are some of the kind of really like easy and basic things that people are kind of missing to be more multicultural, especially to reach out to the Hispanic marketplace?
Well, first of all and foremost, most of the time when they look at multicultural consumers, they see it more on a language standpoint rather than understanding the culture. So again, when you translate a message from, for example, English to Spanish, you have to be very careful who is doing that for the following reasons. There are more than 20 different nationalities that speak Spanish. So depending on what country are you from, we have different language variation in English we call slang. So that's why if you have an Argentinian translating your marketing materials, most likely will speak and write as an Argentinian. And then what you're doing is potentially you may be insulting other nationalities because you're not getting the message across because you're using their slang. That's why translations doesn't work. What we do as an agency and what we promote is transcreation. Another thing is when you translate, you're forcing a marketing strategy that was created for Caucasian consumers and forcing in a language standpoint, hope and pray that it will work and it will resonate. It's like saying Australians and Americans are the same because they speak English. The reality is not. Your marketing campaign has to be adjusted to the cultural nuances of the American people. The same applies with Hispanic, for example, consumers. So transcreation is the best way I describe in my book what transcreational marketing is, which is basically creating a communication campaign, for example, appealing to the Latino core values or African American market. Let's say there's another needs that sometimes clients they have, respecting the overall strategy coming from the general market. So how you position your brand the same way that in a culturally relevant way, the message has been created for them and to them and speak to their needs and speak to the cultural nuances Only then is when you're going to achieve that true engagement and results that every brand is looking for, turning those consumers into loyal ambassadors. That's the idea.
I love that. How does a person know what country or even region of a country, the people that are in their primary demographic area, what they're actually speaking? How do they find that out if they didn't know?
Well, definitely the starting point is you have to understand your consumer's persona. So it starts with a solid foundation on creating, whether you have a market research done, quantitative or qualitative market research. That's where you find out who your current customer is, what are the different passion points, and also those who are not your current customers that maybe potentially they are buying from your competitor. So market research is the starting point to create this solid foundation to then develop the strategy, and then from there the campaign. Most of the time, from big brands to medium-sized brands and smaller brands as well, they look at more on a language standpoint. So again, forcing something that was not originally created for them, and on a language standpoint, force it to make it work. But the reality is, it won't create the results that they're looking for. So understanding first the consumer's persona, do the research, understand why they engage with brand, what type of products they do it, how often, what image do they have about your brand or your services, products or services that you offer. And then from there, we'll give you a lot of powerful insights to create this short-term and long-term strategy.
So, if I hear you correctly, you're not suggesting go to Google Translate, put in your copy, and just have it pop out whatever craziness it does.
That's the worst thing that you can do because you are going to depend on how the system Google will translate everything the best way possible, and that's when things get lost in translation, or it sounds very harsh, the translation, because it's done word by word. And in many cases we have seen even the name of your brand is translated into Spanish, which you shouldn't. The name of your brand is your brand in English, in Spanish, in any language. So that's the worst thing that you can do, is to use Google Translate or have it in your website. You need the help of an expert or a team that can help you and guide to make sure that that message is transcreated in a very powerful and meaningful way that appeals to cultural nuances of the different multicultural audiences you're trying to reach.
Is it easier to have a button that allows them to be able to see it in their language preference, or is it easier to have like an entry screen that asks them what they prefer to watch it in?
Well, it's up to the client discretions. We have clients that they have a button that says, for example, Spanish or Creole. So they click on it and goes to the Creole version or Spanish version of the website. It's again, the message has to be culturally relevant. It cannot be a direct translation word by word. And we can't forgive right now. Website becomes the front window of any business. So when somebody is interested in buying your product or brand, the first thing they're going to do is to go to your website and get a little more information about it. So if you have it available in a language they maybe prefer to engage with your brand, you're creating a really good, strong impression. And always your first impression is your last impression. So having a very responsive and culturally relevant website as a starting point, that's what is going to start creating this trust from the beginning. It's not an afterthought that many brands, they implement this as an afterthought. They just put different language in the website. So it's going to have content that truly resonate and engage with these audiences effectively and efficiently.
Absolutely love that. I remember the old story, and you probably heard this one too, about how when the Chevy Nova went from the U.S. market to any of the Hispanic, any Spanish-speaking market, the word "nova" does not translate real well into Spanish. Loosely translated, it basically means it doesn't run.
Right.
Not really the car you want to buy. So, a
Correct.
really good example of knowing what you're actually saying to your clients. I love that.
Yes, yes, that's why you had to be very careful when you tap to other markets within the U.S. or outside the U.S. We have seen examples like this all the time. So brands that the brand name has a negative connotation in another countries. Like a great example of this, Mitsubishi, when they launched the first SUV, the Montero. It used to be the word Pajero. So in Latin America, they have in some countries of Latin America, they had to change the name Pajero for Montero because it had a negative connotation, the word Pajero in some countries.
I love that. So many interesting things that you learn. So let's talk specifically about your book. It is available today for free. Person can go out to Amazon and get it today only for free, and I will drop the link here for it in just a minute in case you didn't see it up in the description. But tell me today, what's your favorite part of the book? What's the part that just pops to your mind that you're really excited about?
Um, I love the book, the way I put it together. Especially, it will give you an overview of how the country is evolving, is changing, it's becoming, multicultural. That's the bottom line. I also give some secrets about do and don'ts, what companies are doing right, what companies are not doing good at all, and then provide guidance in how to engage the market, multicultural consumers, in particular U.S. Hispanic market. That's what the main focus will be through the book, for being the leading, fastest growing demographic within multicultural consumers. And some valuable advice and suggestions and recommendations at the end of the book in how to create a very powerful and meaningful relationship with multicultural consumers, in particular with millennials and Gen Zs, that they're going to be the drivers of this growth moving forward for any companies and brands they're trying to see how they can grow their business within this evolving consumer evolution, basically.
I have a question for you, and my information is a little bit outdated, so it may not still be this way. When my children were in grade school, so this is a few years ago because they're all adults now, the particular school, the particular neighborhood we lived in was where all of the Hispanics that worked for Intel lived. It just happened to be kind of a little community, that kind of way. But in getting to know the people were still very excited about being Americans. I mean, it wasn't like they were trying to leave the country, but they had their own cultural prejudice, is the only word I can say, about other countries, even though, they may have, as we see them, all been Hispanic speaking countries. They were very, very different. Is that still the case, or has that, I don't know, mellowed out a little bit, or what's it like in the marketplace now?
No, it's still there. You have people, they embrace others, and some people, they still have some stigma, right? The problem that we live here in this country, in particular with U.S. Hispanic, is the rhetoric that we constantly hear from politicians to media, that the Hispanic community is people crossing the border and taking jobs from Americans. That is absolutely not true. At this point, 75% of the Hispanic population is US born, 55% is second generation. So the growth is domestic. That's what the media and politicians are not talking about for rating purposes and for voting purposes. But the growth is domestic. Second, third generation, bilingual, bicultural, higher household income, higher level of education. They tend to spend 90% of the disposable income, and more than 60% of the Hispanic community is part of middle to upper class. So that's something that I address in the book. There is still a lot of stigma about multicultural consumers, in particular U.S. Hispanics, and it's time for companies to put their personal bias on the side and look at the business and how they can grow it in this consumer evolution era. But this stigma happens everywhere. It's just a little bit different of how in the US, for example, they see other audiences and they discriminate in certain ways that in other countries is not how they discriminated. But the book is a great tool and a resource to help people to have a better understanding on how they can grow their business. Where are we now? Where are we going to be? And gives you step by step on how you can grow your brand moving forward and your business.
I love that. It was a really great insight into just what you were saying earlier, that, just because a person, their parents or even their grandparents may have spoken Spanish, and maybe they even still know it fluently, they saw themselves as different being from, say, for example, Argentina, like you are, versus being from Colombia or Mexico. Those are just as uniquely different of countries for them. And I just, it was really cool insight to see, because I think it's all too easy for people, in the United States to just kind of see them all as, well, if a person knows how to speak Spanish, and looks like maybe they have that ancestry, that they all must be, and I hate to say it this way, but they all must be Mexican. That's kind of how people approach it.
Yeah, that's you said it right. It's a strong misconception. As right now, as I said before, 55% is second generation. They're fully bilingual, they're fully bicultural. So speaking to them in both languages, but the key is the message has to be culturally relevant. That's the way of winning. For example, the Hispanic consumer. The younger the audience is, also taking into consideration their acculturation levels, they tend, to speak more English than Spanish. But understanding the whole process of who is going to be buying your product and who are those influencers within the household during that purchase decision. So that's where you have to take that into consideration and have a culturally relevant campaign in both languages to get that consumer to take action and engage with your brand. But yeah, it's not just everything has to be done in Spanish. It has to be done in both. It's the culture is more important than language at time of execution, and that's what I address in the book. Unfortunately, a lot of brands, they're stuck in the language perspective, which they should be stuck, not stuck, embrace the importance of culture. Culture goes first, language goes second.
I absolutely love that. Well, and of course, people need to get multicultural mainstream, the power of Hispanics in consumer marketing. But also tell us, if a person wants to work further with you, how can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to my website, HERNANTAGLIANI.com. There you will have information about me as an author, as a business speaker. If they need help in regards business-wise, in how to guide them and grow their brand, so then I invite them to take a look of my company's website, which is thegroupadvertising.com, thegroupads.com. So definitely we would love to help you in how to set you for success and grow your brand with a strong strategy and plan appealing to multicultural mainstream.
Absolutely love that. Do you get Multicultural Mainstream today on Amazon? The link is both down in the comments as well as up in the description. Hernan, thanks so much for spending some time with us here on the show today.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time, Steve.